Hi guys, it's Miss Ulrich here. I want to continue telling the story of the steps leading up to the Civil War, but my focus specifically is on the more extreme violent instances and the immediate effects that happen from those. So the first one is the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and it's in yellow, which means it is a Quizlet term, so definitely want to know it. During this time in the 1850s, the country was struggling to maintain a balance between free states and slave states because the concern was there were more slave states, remember, they'd have more representation in Congress and they could, for instance, pass laws that allowed slavery to go everywhere or vice versa. The free states could do the opposite. And so the problem is we keep getting more and more people settling out west in the 1850s. And then once there's enough people there, they want to become states so that way they can have representation in Congress. And so this specifically became a problem in 1854 when people had settled the Kansas and Nebraska territories. So the question was, what do we do? They are technically north of this 3630 line, if you recall, from 1820 with the Missouri Compromise. This said that the land in the Louisiana Purchase here should be free. But this yet is up for debate as people are, again, fighting over what should that actually be the case or should something new be drawn up. And so the Kansas-Nebraska Act is drawn up by this guy here, Stephen Douglas. He is a Democratic senator, and his idea is that, hey, let's have the people vote and individually decide themselves if it will be a slave state or a free state. And that idea is going to be known as popular sovereignty, letting the people in those respective territories vote if it'll be a slave state or a free state. That is what the Kansas-Nebraska Act decides, let the people vote. And the effect of that is it's going to lead to Bleeding Kansas, which begins the following year and actually goes on for many years. Many pro and anti-slavery people converge on Kansas, trying to sway the vote. And some people take matters into their own hands, like what you can see pictured here, bringing their weapons, whatever they had, and blood is shed, hence the term Bleeding Kansas. 55 people die in Bleeding Kansas. Remember, this is before the outbreak of the Civil War. We've got civilians killing other civilians at this point, including this guy, John Brown, who we'll study more in a little bit. Mr. Brigham's going to talk about. He is a diehard abolitionist that comes to Kansas and meets his sons that were living there, and they end up killing 5 pro-slavery people themselves. So this just shows, again, how violent things were getting before the outbreak, the technical outbreak of the Civil War. This all leads to the formation of the Republican Party. It starts actually at this house that's pictured. A group of people meet in Wisconsin, and their main part of their platform is that they are going to be against the expansion of slavery in the West. So they're not anti-slavery. They're just against the expansion of slavery in the West. And so this party is going to replace the Whigs, and they're going to recruit some of those former Whigs. They're even going to draw some support from some Democrats. And this is the new party that's going to compete with the Democrats at this time. And eventually, we'll talk more about later, Mr. Brigham will mention too, that this, of course, will be the party of Abraham Lincoln. He'll run for the presidency as a Republican in 1860. So Kansas-Nebraska Act leads to this, as some people were against the idea of letting people vote. They wanted slavery to be banned in these new territories, and that's why this party got started. The last thing I want to talk to you about is kind of a crazy thing that happened in Congress. It was called the Brooks-Sumner Affair, and it had basically, it involved Charles Sumner, who was a prominent Republican abolitionist. He made a speech against the Kansas-Nebraska Act that allegedly insulted Preston Brooks' relative. Preston Brooks was a congressman. And so in the congressional chambers, Preston Brooks, again, took matters into his own hands and takes a cane and actually physically assaults Charles Sumner. And Sumner was actually like stuck in his desk there and had to take this abuse, and it actually left him unconscious. Here's actually the cane that was used to cane him. And this shows you a cartoon from the Northerners' perspective saying, really, is this chivalrous? This is how Southerners behave, the argument versus clubs. And again, this is just a small incident, but it's very, very telling because look at the response that it triggers. All of these different canes, or hundreds of canes, are sent to Preston Brooks in support of what he did. It takes about 3 years for Charles Sumner to recover from this brutal incident, but he will come back to the Senate. But look at what we are seeing now in the halls of Congress. We're seeing grown men now assault each other over, the future of slavery. So yeah, hope that helps, guys, and have a great rest of your day.